I want to welcome everybody to week 4 of our introduction to ionized water. And tonight we're going to be talking on the subject 100 trillion cells. So I guess you can bet that we're going to be talking about cells and why they're important and how water affects the cell, those 100 trillion cells in our bodies. And like last week, our review from the past weeks is going to be integrated into what we're talking about tonight. So get ready. You know, repetition is important. So you're going to hear some of the same things over and over, but each time you hear it, it will be embellished on a little bit more. So last week we did, or a couple of weeks ago, we started talking about cells. And so we're going to continue on that theme. Just to remind you, I am a naturopathic and European biological medicine physician. And the reason that's important is on the next slide, because I spent lots and lots of time and energy and effort to learn how the body naturally works and how we can assist the body in elevating its healing capacity. And as you probably remember from earlier weeks, my favorite professor, Dr. Thomas Rao, kind of summed everything up this way. He said, if you can do these things, if you can create a slight shift in the pH of the blood, the urine, and the saliva, and if you could reduce oxidation on the cell membrane, if you could get more minerals into the cells, a body could heal itself of anything. So the reason this is important is because as I began to study ionized water and take tests and tests and tests and tests and tests of hundreds of patients, I realized that while all of this is true, the order was wrong. Because in my biological medicine courses, what we were really concentrating on was pH, just like most of you. And what I discovered after getting my Enagic ionizer is that, and doing all this testing, is that it was the reduction of oxidation on the cell membrane that made it possible to create a shift in the pH of the blood, urine, and saliva. And it made it possible for more minerals to get into the cells so that bodies could heal themselves of anything. Now remember, anything includes all of these things. So it does not matter what we're talking about. We could be talking about your health history, which we will address that later tonight. In your family's health history, you could have any one or multiple numbers of all of these disorders, and your doctor would say you are predisposed to getting these diseases because it's in your family history. So your doctor, he or she would be really advising you to be proactive about taking certain medicines, about doing certain things to avoid your destiny, because they believe that because this is in your DNA, it is your destiny. But what do all these diseases and illnesses have in common? All organs and systems are made from tissue, and all tissue is made from cells, and cells multiply to make new daughter cells, and daughter cells are identical to the original cell. So this is important. So you want to think about in that whole picture, all of the different parts of the body, from the brain to the eyes to the kidneys to the spinal column to joints and muscles. All of those diseases have a few things in common, and one of them is that they are organs or systems, and all organs and systems are made from tissue, and all tissue is made from cells, and cells multiply to make new daughter cells. And when that happens, every daughter cell is identical to the original cell. Now, the reason that is important is that as this tissue in all of your organs and glandular systems and even your immune system are they're made up of these groups of cells, and every cell looks a little bit different. They have a lot of things in common, but they do look a little different. So here is kind of a cutaway of a cell showing you all the different parts and pieces that are all the parts and pieces that are contained inside the cell. And so let's talk about some real specific types of cells and how long they live. So this is a cutaway of your skin, and skin has 3 layers of different kinds of skin. So we'll just talk about the top one, the epidermis. So the epidermal skin cells last between 2 and 4 weeks. So that's a pretty fast turnaround, right? Red blood cells last 120 days. Short, right? If you think about the fact that it only lives 120 days, we know we can make an impact in that pretty quickly. However, nerve cells last up to 100 years or more. They turn over very, very, very slowly. Liver cells last 500 days. That's why when I talk to you about the water protocol, I tell you that you need to do the water protocol for about 500 days. By the end of that 500 days of drinking that water protocol really religiously, you will have a super changed liver. Like, it'll be supercharged, healthier than you could even imagine. Now, here's the impact. Small intestine cells only last 36 hours. I want you to think about what happens when you drink a glass of water. The water passes from your mouth, down your esophagus, into your stomach. And because it's more alkaline, what happens? It passes quickly through the stomach and into the small intestine. So the small intestine is the first place that the water that you drink really hangs out for any period of time. And it's in the small intestine where water is absorbed through the small intestine. It's taken into your bloodstream, it's taken into your lymphatic system, and it's delivered to cells all over your body. So imagine, we'll come back to this. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll come back to this. Now let's look at how cells multiply to make new daughter cells that are identical to the original cell. So you start with a cell, and then you can see in this second picture how it's beginning to divide into, it's beginning to divide, and you can see there's 2 distinct cells starting to form. And then in the next picture, the cells are more fully formed. Then down in the next row, they're getting ready to separate, and then all of a sudden now you've got 2 cells. But they are identical in every way. No matter what was in the original cell, the daughter cell has it in identical proportions. They are identical. Now, this is important because remember we talked about all of those 100 trillion cells in your body are bombarded by at least 10,000 free radicals every day, and that those free radicals can dramatically start to change a lot of things about your cell, including the cell membrane. Well, when a daughter cell when an unhealthy cell that's been highly oxidized on its cell membrane divides and makes 2 daughter cells, those daughter cells are identical to the original cell, and they are also very compromised. They have the improper pH. They have a cell membrane that's not very functional. They have oxidized cell membrane. They're identical to the original parent cell. Now, let's talk about what happens inside your cells and why that's so important. Because every one of your cells is like a tiny factory. Inside of that cell, thousands of chemical reactions are taking place every moment of every day. And there are lots of separate compartments, as you can see from this cutaway of the cell. And at the very center of the cell is the nucleus. And that nucleus acts kind of like the manager's office of your cell. The nucleus contains a copy of your genes, so it has all your DNA instructions. It also contains instructions for making proteins. And inside the other compartments, the cell generates power, it gets rid of waste, and it makes molecules that it needs to survive and work and grow. So on the outside of the cell, on that cell membrane, there are all kinds of little places where minerals can hook up and get inside the cell to create those molecules that it needs to create food. And in this particular illustration, all of those red things, those are mitochondria. And in the mitochondria, that's where power is generated. ATP is produced to fuel your cell. And as we fuel cells, we fuel the body. And there are some lymphocyte cells in there. There's some, receptor sites to get lymph out. And remember, when a cell membrane is semi-permeable and it's functioning properly, it allows lots of waste products to get out freely. It allows water to get in freely, and it allows oxygen to get in freely, so that a cell will continue to produce energy and make food and grow and change and multiply. So kind of interesting, right? Think of it like a little powerhouse. So here is a picture of a nerve cell. And you see in this particular illustration, all of those blue things with the squiggly lines, those are the mitochondria of the nerve cell. Now, the reason that mitochondria is important for us to talk about all stems down there at the bottom of the slide where it says free radicals created at 1 and 2. So this is called the electron transport chain. And remember, a free radical is an atom or a molecule that has lost an electron. So down here in the mitochondria, as your cell is turning the food supplies that it gets into energy, into ATP, it creates some pretty gnarly free radicals. It creates H2O2 and it creates O2 positive. And those are both pretty damaging free radicals. And it is just a byproduct of your body making fuel. So in a perfect world, your body would produce enough glutathione, it would produce enough other antioxidant actions to take care of all the oxidation that's happening at a cellular level. But because our world is not pristine and it's not ideal, we're bombarded from the outside by at least 10,000 free radicals. And that's not considering what's happening inside the cell and all of the free radicals that are produced. So each cell has a different number of mitochondria. So the more active a cell is, the more mitochondria it has in it. The more mitochondria it has in it, the more energy it's making and expending, and the more free radicals it's creating. So it wouldn't surprise you to know that your muscle cells have lots of mitochondria in them. But it might surprise you to know that your fat cells have the most mitochondria of all of your cells, because fat is really just stored energy. It's just that some of us have stored a little too much of it. I'm on the list. So this is one of the reasons that being overweight and having excess fat stores is detrimental to your health, because you know every doctor will always say, well, you'll reduce your cardiovascular load if you lose some weight. Your diabetes will get under control if you lose some weight. Maintaining proper weight is really important, but they're not telling you that one of the reasons for that, because they probably don't know, one of the reasons for that is that the fat cells themselves have a lot of mitochondria, which are making lots of free radicals all the time. So the more extra fat cells you have, the more free radicals you're producing every day. This is why it's important to try to maintain a healthier weight. And so when you exercise, you are going to produce a lot of free radicals because your muscles are going to be in use, and you're going to start burning some of your fat stores. So you're going to be producing or releasing a lot of free radicals. So really important that pre-workout and post-workout and during workout, if possible, you make sure that you're drinking really fresh ionized water, right? That's very important because that's how you're going to combat a lot of those free radicals. So that's kind of a interesting twist on why it's important to maintain, why people who are overweight tend to have more health problems, and why so many people say, well, after I lost weight, so many things improved in my health. So here is a close-up of the cell membrane. We're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail than we have in the past. So I told you before that the real name, the official name for this membrane, this covering, is called a phospholipid bilayer. So what it means is that each one of those little round circles is composed primarily of fat, and a fat is lipid, and a lipid is a fat that's a little bit more, generally it's a little bit more viscous. It's not hard and solid. So if you think about like the fat on bacon, that is a lipid, but it's not the same. It'd be like be a cross between solid fat and olive oil. If you mix those two things together, you'd get this nice viscous. Well, that's what the fat on your cell membrane is like. And in each part of that in each molecule of fat, it has a phosphorus atom or molecule embedded in it. And so there's one layer of this on the outside, one layer on the inside. So it's two of them together, and you can see the little tails, how they kind of connect. And that's what makes your cell membrane. Now, when that cell membrane is really healthy, when everything is going right, it is semi-permeable, and it allows all kinds of oxygen to get in, as much oxygen as your cell needs to produce the ATP it needs for proper energy production. And then it allows the carbon dioxide that's produced by the cell to escape freely. And it allows water in as much as necessary. Whatever is necessary for the cell can get through that cell membrane. And when this is happening, you have enough oxygen to make the ATP. You have enough water to balance the pH properly of whatever the proper pH for that cell is. And all the waste products, or the primary waste products, are just escaping through the cell membrane. And that keeps a cell perfectly healthy. However, as those 10,000 hits from the outside and some of the hits from the inside begin to attack, basically they're attacking the cell membrane, and they're attacking it because fat is an easy place for a free radical to get an electron. So now I'm going to show you my t-shirt. Do you see it now? It says, I lost an electron. And the other atom says, are you positive? You get it? Because when you lose an electron, you become positive. I thought you might get a little giggle out of that. So I think those would be great t-shirts for you to use and do a demo in, because it would make people understand why there's why it's a positively charged ion or a negatively charged ion, right? So anyway, I thought that one was so funny, I had to buy it. So as these free radicals begin to attack the cell, the fat actually changes on that cell membrane, and it's no longer semi-permeable. It gets thick and sticky like the fat on your vent fan in your kitchen, because all that fat is that's up on your stove and on your backsplash and on that vent fan, all that is oxidized fat. And how I came to this was after I'd had my enagic unit for a little bit, and I was still trying to figure all of this out. One day I went in to clean the kitchen, and I was cleaning, I have a whole book that tells you how to clean your house with ionized water. Well, that took a while for me to develop. And so I was still in the process of figuring out how to use all these waters. And I was using some water, some supercharged alkaline water to clean the vent fan in my kitchen. And as I was doing it, and that supercharged, very alkaline water was kind of changing that fat. Now it was coming right. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got it. It was like a totally clear picture in my mind that oxidized fat combined with supercharged alkaline water that had all those antioxidants in it was changing that fat on my vent fan. Well, so it took me a little bit to go through all of the tests that I had done, and start putting all the dots together, connecting all the dots. And that's when I realized what was actually happening on a cellular level. Then I started doing some more research. It took a couple of years. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but there's sort of a synergy in thinking. And when you discover something that no one else is talking about, it doesn't take that long until lots of people start talking about it. It's called the 100th monkey theory, and we'll talk about that one of these days because it's important. But it's important in how we change the world with our ionized water. But anyway, I started doing some research, and it took about a year for me to find all the corroboration I needed to be able to help people understand that this is very, in a nutshell, this, in a real simple way, this is why cells start breaking down. Because as that phospholipid bilayer changes, oxygen is repelled, water is repelled, and CO2 is trapped inside. Now, not 100% of the oxygen is repelled, and not 100% of the water is repelled, and not 100% of the carbon dioxide is trapped inside. But as it becomes more and more oxidized, it gets worse and worse. So let's just think about the fact that a daughter cell is being reproduced. Let's pretend this is a small intestine cell, and it's getting super oxidized, and in 36 hours it's going to die because 2 new cells are going to replace it, and those new cells are going to be identical to the old one, which was in terrible shape. And now they started out in terrible shape, and they're getting bombarded by 10,000 hits every day. And in the 36 hours they live, they have been bombarded dramatically just because of their location in the body. And now you've got even less healthy small intestine cells. Now, why is that important? Because the small intestine is where the water that you drink gets absorbed into your bloodstream and your lymphatic system. And it's where all the food breaks down and is transported into your bloodstream and into your lymphatic system. And so if your small intestine cells are too oxidized to actually perform properly, then there's not going to be enough nutrients put into your bloodstream to create enough minerals getting into the cells. It's not going to be able to absorb enough of the nutrition out of the food that you've eaten. And then what happens is a couple of things. Your cells become less healthy because they're not getting what they need. And most people begin to have more cravings to eat more food, because it's not that they're hungry, it's their body's trying to get more nutrition in. Have any of you experienced when you have people start drinking this water, they say their appetite reduces? That's one of the reasons, because as your small intestine cells begin to get healthier and healthier, and this is one of the very first places that gets super healthy in your body is your small intestine, you start absorbing more of the nutrients out of the food that you're eating, so your body calls for less food. Now, the second thing, the next thing is, as our small intestine cells become more healthy, they also make an exchange. Not only in the small intestine are you uptaking all the nutrients, but you're downloading some of the waste products. So it's a very important process that's going on. We're hydrating cells, so the pH is normalizing. We're getting enough oxygen in cells so that ATP can be produced and cells can be healthy, and we're getting more carbon dioxide out. So now, 36 hours later, after starting to drink enough ionized water, the cell membranes are going to be much less oxidized than they were 36 hours earlier. Now, as those cells begin to make daughter cells, they're 1 generation healthier. Now, you keep on that water protocol, and you keep drinking that water, and you keep drinking out of glass bottles, and you keep drinking it super fresh, and in 36 more hours, you are going to have 1 generation healthier daughter cells being produced. And you keep that process up, and before too long, you're really noticing a difference in your health. This is important. So when people say that they don't want to learn too much about science, or science makes it complicated, I'm telling you, science makes it easy. Because now you can explain to people why it's so important to drink the water. And when they say, man, in just a couple of days, I felt so much different, you can say, well, just give it a couple more weeks, because the cells in your small intestine that are responsible for uptaking the water and the nutrients into your body are getting healthier and healthier and healthier. And they change over every 36 hours. So just imagine what 2 weeks can do. And so when you put people on a 2-week trial, that's why things change. It's kind of exciting, isn't it? Now, you can see the phospholipid bilayer in this picture. And these are all pumps and channels and receptor sites. So they're made from embedded proteins. So these proteins are embedded in that cell, and they allow certain, like one of them will be a sodium channel, and it allows the right amount of salt to get in. And one of them will be a potassium channel, and it lets enough potassium in. And another one of them will be a receptor site for hormones, and so it'll let certain hormones in. Well, all of these proteins, while they're not as susceptible to free radical damage as the fats, they are also susceptible, and they begin to change shape. And that's very important to understand, because all of these pumps and channels, and particularly the receptor sites, are like a lock and key mechanism. And so they have to fit perfectly in order to get in. To be able to get through the gate or through the channel, that has to be a perfect fit. And so, excuse me, as free radicals begin to damage those proteins and they start to change shape, you're not getting enough protein in. You're not getting enough building blocks to produce protein. You're not getting enough minerals into the cell. See, this goes back to that Dr. Rao thing. If you could get enough minerals into the cell, well, when these receptors and channels and pumps are damaged, you're not getting enough in. So when you remove the oxidation, now you can get enough minerals into the cell. So, one of the second steps in how a body heals itself, right? So this is really important to understand, that every cell not only has the fatty phospholipid bilayer getting affected by these free radical bombardments, but it's also affecting the ability to get minerals in, to get proteins, building blocks for proteins in. It's important to be able to get hormones in. Everything that's needed inside the cell to run the cell and make energy has to come through these pumps or channels or receptor sites. And when they're damaged, it doesn't happen. And so as we reverse the oxidation on the cell membrane, we're also reversing the oxidation on these pumps and channels and receptor sites. This is a picture of damaged DNA. You see that break right there, that area where the breaks are? And if you look really close, it's in some other areas, and the myelin sheath on the outside is damaged. When oxidation becomes this severe, we start having real breakdowns in the DNA that we're passing on to our children as well. This is how all kinds of disease processes and health issues are passed on in our DNA from us to our children. But as we begin to reverse oxidation on the cell membrane, this stuff starts to change. We get enough protein in, and when we do that, when we get enough building blocks for protein in the cells, and we get enough oxygen into the cell so that the mitochondria are making enough ATP, all of this begins to change. Our bodies are self-healing machines. And when we give our bodies the tools they need to heal themselves, they do it. Now remember, cells multiply to make new daughter cells that are identical to the original cell. So as we drink more ionized water and we remove more oxidation from the cell membrane, that cell membrane begins to let enough water in to balance the pH. It begins to repair the cell membrane, and now enough oxygen is getting in to make ATP. And carbon dioxide is getting out, and pumps, channels, and receptors are restored, and now we're getting enough minerals into the cell. So we've done those things that Dr. Rao talked about. We reduced the oxidation on the cell membrane, which allowed the pH to make a shift, and it allowed more minerals into the cells. So now what can happen? That body could heal itself of anything. Now, this does not happen overnight. This is a long process. And because we're constantly bombarded by free radicals in our everyday environment and through our own bodies, we have to keep up a vigilant fight, because the stresses of modern life are they add dramatically to the burden of oxidation and create all of these different kinds of disease processes. And remember that even exercise creates more free radicals as the ATP is produced, and it's releasing H2O2 and O2 positive. We're getting some pretty nasty free radicals from the inside of the cell, which is all the more reason that we have to have that water to help reduce the oxidation at the cellular level. Remember, this is the problem. Those free radicals. So look, for every single molecule of energy, of ATP that's produced, you get 2 free radicals. It's a bummer, right? It'd be much nicer if we got 2 or 3 molecules of ATP for every 1 free radical, but it's a 2-to-1 thing. And so this is really important because we have to produce this energy. Our bodies are designed to do this, and our bodies will actually use these free radicals in ways to heal our body, to heal itself. For instance, if you have a cut or a scrape or an opening in your skin from a bug bite or a scratch or whatever, your body, your immune system will use these free radicals and send them straight to that area to destroy those invaders that could be coming in through your skin. Our bodies do all kinds of great things with free radicals, but we're overburdened by them just because of our life and our food supply and our air supply and our water supply all adds dramatically to the burden of free radicals. Remember, oxidation creates dehydration on a cellular level, and dehydration is responsible for inflammation. Now, so here is the illustration, and it comes from Turning Back the Hands of Time, the book Turning Back the Hands of Time. Our immune system also creates free radicals, and this is how it happens. Our immune system initiates an inflammatory response because we've got an illness or we had an injury. And that inflammation utilizes the free radicals that we talked about to destroy those microbial invaders. And the free radicals damage surrounding cell membranes, creating more oxidation on the cell membranes around that, the area that they were attacking. And the damage to the cell membranes impedes the flow of water into the cells, which results in dehydration. And dehydration concentrates acidic waste. And the concentration of acidic waste increases more oxidative stress, and more oxidative stress creates more inflammation. And this is this downward spiral into illness. Does that make sense to everybody? Does that illustration help you understand? This is why that book, why I keep telling you that book, Turning Back the Hands of Time, is really an important one to get, because by the time I wrote that one, I had better illustrations. I had an illustrator who's creating better illustrations that could actually help you understand the progression. It's really an important one. Now, the perfect antioxidant would be all of these things. It would reverse oxidation. It would be inexpensive. It would heal the cell membranes. It would restore health. It would be colorless and odorless. It would help adjust the pH in the body. It would do all kinds of things. Good thing we know where to get it, right? Because the perfect antioxidant we're going to see that right here in these ionized water basics. So we're going to go back and review the basics that we've been talking about all along. Atoms are single units. Here is an oxygen atom. It has 8 electrons, so it has 4 pairs of electrons. It's a very stable atom. This is a fluoride atom. As you can see, whatever its signature is, and the number is how many electrons it has orbiting around the nucleus in the center. And here is a chlorine atom. It has 17 electrons. So it has one that's not paired down there, right? You see that? Because, of course, with 17, you couldn't have pairs. So it has 8 pairs of electrons and 1 single. That means it's very reactive. It is not a stable atom. Molecules are 2 atoms that are bound together, 2 or more atoms bound together. So hydrogen, H2, is 2 of the same atoms bound together, but H2O are different atoms bound together. So we have 2, it's really HOH. So we have a hydrogen, an oxygen, and a hydrogen. And they're all bound together, and they make water. And a water molecule, right here, isn't that pretty? That water molecule is so cool. The water molecule is really stable because it has all paired electrons, right? So you can see they're all paired up. And like I said, its signature is really HOH, but we, in our shorthand in chemistry, call it H2O. And when water has electricity added to it, it produces ions, like OH negative and H positive. It produces some atoms like oxygen, and it produces molecules like H2. So all of these things happen when when electricity passes through water. We get ions, we get atoms, and we get molecules. And ions create the pH changes in your water. So OH negative is what creates alkalinity. This hydroxide ion is responsible for the level of the alkaline pH in your water, while the H positive, or a positively charged hydrogen ion, makes the water acidic. Whoops. H2 creates antioxidants. Remember that H2O2, if you added H2 to it, it would go back to being something entirely different and stable. So as we drink this water, it's going to have some H2 in it. But as H2 is exposed to the platinum that coats those titanium plates in your ionizer, they freely give up their electrons. Hydrogen, in the presence of platinum, freely gives up its electrons. This is used in a hydrogen fuel cell. This is how energy is produced in a hydrogen fuel cell. And they take these electrons and they put them down a wire, and you get electricity. So free electrons are produced when hydrogen comes in contact with the platinum. Now, remember, a free radical, remember my shirt, a free radical is just an atom or a molecule that's lost an electron. All it needs to make it stable again, to make it not be a free radical, to make it whole again, and to quench that free radical is an antioxidant. What is better than an antioxidant in the form of a free electron that can be substituted for an electron in any atom or any molecule? Now, we're going to talk a little bit about antioxidants in fruits and vegetables and herbs and spices. These are all amazing health-giving items. Everything from greens to chocolate have lots of antioxidants in them. They are very important for your overall health. But these antioxidants, these traditional antioxidants, have some limitations. Antioxidants that we take in supplement form or in foods are tissue specific. So vitamin A helps support mucous membranes and lungs. Vitamin E helps support the cardiovascular system, while vitamin C helps support connective tissue and skin. But vitamin A does not help your connective tissue and skin. So if you take a lot of vitamin A, that will help some of your mucous membranes in your lungs, but it's not going to help your cardiovascular system or your skin. So as you can see, antioxidants are tissue specific. The other thing is that they have some serious drawbacks in that only 25% of the antioxidants in the form of food and supplements are used by your body. And in high doses, vitamins A and E, which are fat-soluble antioxidants, become toxic to your liver. And what you probably didn't know, and we've talked about a little bit, but I want to expand on it today, is that as antioxidants do the very job they're meant to do, which is donate an electron to a free radical, they become weak free radicals themselves. Now, they quenched a really terrible free radical, but they became a free radical. They just became a less severe or a less harmful free radical. But so you can see that taking supplements and eating foods high in antioxidants can never stop the cycle of oxidation because they always add something to it. While they're taking away a terrible one, they're adding a less terrible one. Does that make sense? But a perfect antioxidant would take care of any free radical, right? Without having any harmful byproducts. So I want you to think about the fact that your water is full of these free electrons. Now, it's not full of free electrons if you're sharing it in a gallon jug, because exposure to light, heat, air, and motion is going to cause those little electrons to dissipate really rapidly. For antioxidants, especially in the form of H2 and free electrons, they're not like, they don't have brains. They don't know that you wanted them to wait to take care of some oxidation till it got inside your body. So the air that got in your bottle, the plastic that you're storing it in, all of those things were creating some free radicals. And so the antioxidants are taking care of those free radicals and not waiting till they get into your body. And once your bottle has a little bit of airspace in it and you move it around, that motion causes it to go down really quickly. You can see some of this just by taking readings with your ORP meter. Take a bottle of water, have it fully capped, take the measurement, fill up 3 bottles. Take an immediate measurement in one of the bottles. Wait an hour or so, take a measurement in the second bottle. Now, once you've gotten that reading, pour a little bit of the water out, just a little bit, and shake it up. Shake, 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 shake. Wait 5 minutes and take the reading. You'll be shocked at what happened. You'll be shocked that you can start getting negative. I mean, instead of having negative numbers, you can start having some positive numbers. Because all the antioxidants are gone. And the hydroxyl ion is sensitive to light, heat, air, and motion. And so it's going to revert back too, and you can end up with either a super, low negative number, or even move into positive numbers. But if we're drinking the water properly, we are actually changing all, one by one, we're changing those 100 trillion cells in our body. Every glass of water is responsible for a little less oxidation. The next glass is responsible for a little less oxidation, and a little less oxidation, and a little less oxidation. And this is how we really can impact the health of the people all around the world. We really can, by sharing this water, by sharing the technology, and by understanding how it works in your body so you can answer their questions. You will inspire them to want to drink the water. And so we can easily impact the health of people all around the world, one glass of water at a time, because it's filled with antioxidants. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about. That's the end of the discussion for tonight, and we're going to move on. And I'm giving you your assignment for week 4. I wish I had done this on the other weeks, but I didn't, so we're going to be really clear. I want you to write down a brief family health history. And then I want you to look to see if there's a pattern in that. Like, are these more nerve related? Are they more muscle related? Are they, how are they related? And maybe they're not, maybe they're all over the board. I want you to compare that health history to the water quality issues in the area where you grew up. So if you grew up here in Spokane, you would know that your water's full of arsenic. And so you could do a little Google search on arsenic and health and find out how arsenic really affects your health. So find out wherever you grew up, what was you can call that city, you can look it up online, and you can probably get a water report. So if you can do that, get that and determine which kinds of cells would have been most impacted by whatever it was that was going on in that water. And then look at the average lifespan of that type of cell. So arsenic affects nerve cells. Well, nerve cells last 100 years. So the poor people who grew up here in Spokane, as my kids and I like to call it, they would be more susceptible to having health issues that had something to do with the nerves. And since nerve cells don't regenerate very quickly, it's a bigger problem. Now, once you've determined in your body, your health history, what kinds of cells would have been affected most by either the water where you were growing up or the water that you're drinking now, follow the water protocol for that particular health issue. So in the book, Ionized Water Protocols, there will be, let's see, where'd my box of books go? I'm moving, so things are getting packed up as I speak, and so I can't always find everything. It's not always exactly where it was, where I thought I left it. But in the book, Ionized Water Protocols, there'll be there's about it averages about 1 page for every kind of malady. So let's just say that it was your kidneys. So then you'd look at the water protocol for kidneys, or you'd say, oh, it was more about your eyes. So you look at what's the water protocol for eyes, and just try following that water protocol for the week. And then I want you to chart your own personal progress on following in the water protocols, in the Ionized Water Protocols book, following Dr. Parker's drinking water protocol. Because some of you've been doing that, some of you haven't. I want you to chart your progress on how faithfully you're able to follow it, how many times a day, and if you're noticing any difference. Okay? So that's your assignment for week 4. Now let's talk about our elevator speeches. In the bonus pre-week 1 call or webinar, we said your ionizing unit starts with ordinary tap water, it filters it, and then it passes it through an electrical field where the water is broken up and antioxidants are created. And at the same time, it creates slightly alkaline drinking water, and the main advantage to drinking this slightly alkaline water is that it passes directly through the stomach and contributes to faster and more effective hydration. And we talked about the fact that your DNA is not your destiny. And when you give your body the tools it needs to heal itself, it does exactly that. And then in week 1, we talked about the fact that all health challenges stem from the same core problems. And oxidation is the main culprit because oxidation leads to dehydration, which leads to inflammation. And again, your DNA is not your destiny. When you give your body the tools it needs to heal itself, it does exactly that. And then in week 2, we talked about the fact that free radicals are just atoms or molecules that have lost an electron, and they are on a mission to find one, and they do not hesitate to steal that electron from anywhere they can. And all of our cells, about 100 trillion of them, are bombarded by 10,000 of these free radicals every day. And free radicals are responsible for aging as well as all known illnesses. And all a free radical needs is an antioxidant to stop it. And ionized water contains more universal antioxidants than any other food or beverage, and it's tasteless and it has 0 calories. And then in week 3, we talked about the fact that we're in the middle of a water crisis and that more than 19 million illnesses annually can be linked to our drinking water. So the quality of the water that you drink determines the quality of all those 100 trillion cells in your body. And since all those 100 trillion cells have cell membranes, and those membranes are made mostly of fat, and each cell that's bombarded by those 10,000 free radicals every day from lots of sources cause problems. The constant exposure to these free radical hits change the fat and make it thick and sticky like the oxidized fat on your kitchen's vent fan. And the antioxidants contained in ionized water can stop even the worst free radical anywhere in the body. Now, are you starting to understand how you can put some of these things together to create a very effective speech? I'm telling you that when I tell people that the fat on their cell membranes gets thick and sticky like the fat on their vent fan, the light bulb goes off every time. And they go, ooh, that's awful. It is awful. So there you go. So start working on your elevator speech. Now, these are the questions that were emailed in, and so I'm going to answer them first, and then we'll go to some of the questions that popped up in our little chat today. So and some of these I got multiple times, so I put all the questions that were kind of more popular and unanswered in other ways. So please explain why I said that reverse osmosis water with added minerals would be the perfect ionized water in week 1, but then last week I mentioned that RO water was bad for your health. Well, so RO water on its own is terrible for your health. It's highly oxidative. But but it's clean. So if you were to take that RO water and add enough minerals back in, the specific minerals back in, so that you could ionize it, because it doesn't have enough minerals in it to ionize. If you try to ionize RO water, nothing happens because it doesn't have enough minerals in it to conduct electricity. So if you added minerals back in and ionized it, it would make an ideal water because it would be clean and you'd have enough specific minerals in it to create, very alkaline and very acidic water and all the levels in between. And question 2 is, I have a friend who gets diarrhea when she drinks 8.5, but on the other hand, I have a hard stool. What do you think would be the cause? So I am going to guess that you don't have any pre-filtration. And so people who have constipation or hard stools, it's generally because there's a lot of calcium in your water, and ionized calcium will make you be constipated. So that's that. Again, you might not be drinking enough water, or you might be doing the thing that a lot of people do, which is drink it out of too big a container, so you're not getting it all consumed within 20 minutes, and so you're not getting everything you need out of it. And diarrhea is the body's best cleansing mechanism. So my guess is that she's not drinking enough water. She's stirring some things up. She's got a lot of toxins that need to come out, but she's not drinking enough to get the toxins washed out, so the body's creating an effective diarrhea to try to get those toxins out of the body. Again, look at your water quality report, because it can be something in your water. Now, can a whole house water softener make the water too soft to make free electrons? No, the softer your water, the higher the pHs are, and the more antioxidants you produce. So what was the name of the company in California that sells the water safe drinking kits? It's called, oh shoot. It'll come to me in a minute when I'm not thinking about it. But if you just look up water safe drinking kits, you'll find them. What's wrong? Silver Lake Labs. I knew it would come to me. Silver Lake Labs in Monrovia, California. And are you allowed to share my story? We're really not supposed to share anyone else's story but your own. If you do, it can be misconstrued as you making a claim. So a testimonial is when you tell your own story, but a claim is when you tell someone else's. So you have to be kind of careful about that. And am I available to speak to other doctors if they have questions? I'm available to speak to lots of people if they have questions. You just have to make an appointment. And I have quick appointments. I have, short appointments that are $15 or $45, depending on the time. And so I'm always happy to help. And are you planning another training soon? Because they're like, please, 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 please. I have so many people that I wish had signed up for this course and didn't. And I'm hoping that you're going to do another one. And I am. I'm still evaluating whether I'm just going to make these available online or we're actually going to start over. But what I do want you to know, so that you can start planning for it, is when this course is over in October, I'm going to offer all of you who've taken this course another short course, which would be about 5 or 6 weeks long, take us up to the holidays. And then we'll let the holidays do their thing, because that always does a number on all of our schedules. And after the holidays are over, we'll start up again and we'll do another short course. So we'll do very specific and more in-depth short courses, because once you've gone through this, then you're ready to study, different disease processes and how the water works to help with those disease processes, those kinds of things. So we will continue to have some, and I believe that I'll be ready to start another introduction class in right after the first of the year as well. So we'll just see how many of your